Welcome back, CSC230, W1 to part 2 of our ex3 floated pic. And this is a short exercise that just kind of continues what we were doing in ex1 with the HTML and ex2 with the CSS. And all we're doing here is we did a little bit of photo editing, very little bit, and we got a photo on our page, and we're just going to use some CSS to float it into position. What happens with floating is it removes it from HTML flow. So right now this is the order that it's in, but if we say float, it can float to the right of what's after it, or float to the left of what's after it. So if we wanted it over here, it would push this stuff over and would float it here. But we want to float it to the right because we have extra space to put it. So it's going to look like this. We're going to have extra space here, and that's where we're going to put it. So we're going to float it to the right of what's after it. So we're going to use float right, and we're going to do it on the figure so it floats everything, and then we'll kind of tweak the spacing, the border, and even the fig caption a little bit. So that should be pretty easy. So let's float the figure first. And again, we have our figure, we have our image source that's in there. Make sure that's working. You have this the same as the actual name that's in there, and then your fig caption down here. So we only have really three things to really target: the figure, the fig caption, and the image that's inside of the figure. Remember, it's a child of that. It's a direct descendant of that. So let's go back into our styles, and we're going to put that about where it is in the flow. And actually our H1, not that it makes a big deal, but this is our H1, and it's actually before the paragraph. So H1 should be probably here. So I'm going to move that. I mean, you don't have to do that. It's not a big deal, but just it's bothering me. So I'm going to put it here because that H1 is in part of the section. So it's up there. And now we have our H2, and this is where our figure is before the H2, so I'm going to put it here in CSS. Again, not required to do that, but I like doing that because it just helps us find it a little better. So I'm going to target the selector figure. So we'll put figure in there, and what we want to do is do something called float, which is really easy to use, and we'll just float right, and that's it. And check it out. And it's floating it there, and you can see it's far to the right of the page, so we're going to put some margin to the right so there's not so much space in here, and we're going to put some margin to the top to move it down. So we'll just kind of tweak it a little bit to move it away, because right now it just pushes it to the far right, right up to the padding over here. So it doesn't know to just put it right here. So we're going to just tweak it a little bit with some margin, and we can go and do that. And I don't think I need this anymore, but that's what it's going to look like. So let me close this up. And we could go in here and put margin dash right and a colon, and we'll just use pixels for now, and I'll just put 30 pixels for now. I'm not sure how much. I'll just throw that in there. I'll put a semicolon, and I'll put margin top. Now how much? I don't know, maybe 24, maybe 30 over here, maybe 24. We'll just try it out. You could always change it later. So I'll put margin top. And remember, you can bundle margin together, but I'll do it now just so I know what I'm doing. And 24px on the top. We'll see how that looks. And I'll go here and I'll refresh it. And that's not too bad. That looks pretty good. I think that looks good over there. We don't need it right close to here, but that looks pretty good. It just looks nicer. Actually, the color looks good because I have kind of a brownish down here, so the dark beer looks pretty good. Now, I might want to put a little space above dark beers, and I may want to center it as well, and I may want to make it smaller or not. It doesn't look too bad the way it is. And then we may just want to put like a little dark border on this. So that's all we're going to do. And I'm going to target the fig caption. I'll target fig caption, and there's fig caption. And I'll put my curly braces, and I want to do something called text align center. Text align, and we'll just do center. And we'll see how that looks. Looks nice, dark beers. And like I said, you could make it smaller. You could put a little space above, just so you know how to do this. Even if you don't think you need space above, it's not really space above. You can use margin top. You could do something like this. Put margin top, and maybe it's only like maybe 4 pixels. Even that's fine. Put margin top 4 pixels. See what it looks like. And it just bumps it down a little. That's fine. Now, one thing to point out, we're going to put a border around there. Now, if you put border around figure, if I went here and I put border, and the way border works, you put size, style, and color. And it doesn't matter what the order is, but you can put border, and then you just put the size. Well, I'll put the style first, which is going to be solid, and then I'll put a space, and then I'll put a color, and I'll just put black for now. I could just type in black, and then I'll put a thickness, and I'll do that in pixels. I'll just put 1px for now, and I'll put a semicolon and make sure everything colors nicely. So again, for border, you kind of collect 3 values. The style, you could do solid, like if you did dotted line or something like that, but solid's pretty typical. I'll do it black. I could have made it blue or brown or used one of the other colors, but black is going to be fine because it's so thin. And then I'm just using a pixel thickness in terms of the border. And I'm putting that on figure. And I'm doing that on purpose because it's not going to actually be on figure, but I just want to show you something. If I put it here, you can see the border goes around the entire figure element, which I do not want. I only want it around the image. So that's why I'm going to actually cut this. I'll cut this out of here. I'll backspace, and I'll do figure, and I could just put image, meaning it's the image inside of figure. I know on the other one I use the greater than sign, but I don't have to use it here because it's the only image inside of figure. If you did something like this, this means direct descendant, and usually you put a space in there. That means the direct descendant, meaning the son or the daughter of figure. But if you just do this, that means any image inside a figure. And I'm doing that because there's other images on the page, but this identifies as the one inside of the figure element. And then I could just go here and I'll paste that, and I'll get rid of the extra space here. And that's all I should have to do. That should put it just around the image. And that looks better. So that's fine. That's all I need. I could put a little bit more space on the top. Maybe if I did 30. That bumps it down just a little bit. And also getting a little close over there. Actually, one thing just to keep in mind here, if this thing gets bigger, because it's floated, it may actually overlap over top of it. So if we just put figure image, and let's say I just put height and I made it like 280 pixels. And let's just see what happens. I'm targeting the image. You see what's happening. It's overlapping over that. And what we have to do is make sure that necessarily doesn't happen. So what we could do is go inside of section, and I'm going to put a property in here called overflow. And this is something that's used with floats. What happened here is it's breaking out of the container because it's a floated element. And with floated elements inside a container like section, what you could do is do something called Overflow Auto, which means it kind of contains the overflow. And that's not happening here, but if we go in here and we put Overflow Auto, that should fix it. And that's usually the case when we have columns. Anytime you're using floats inside of some type of container, usually Overflow Auto is necessary. So I'm going to put that in there, Overflow Auto, and that's for section because that's what's containing it. And I'll refresh, and that's what it should look like. So now, no matter how big that gets, it's not going to overflow over the bottom. Now, I don't want my image that big, so I'm going to take out, for my image, I'm going to take out this height, but I was just doing that just to show you that. So that's it, I believe. Let me refresh this, and that looks good. So no matter how big of an image you have, Overflow Auto in the section part will kind of restrain that so it won't go above that. So everything looks okay, and I think we're almost done here. I think we're done with EX1 in terms of what we had to do. So everything's working in here. We have our image, and I think we're good. So that's all we have to do for EX1. We did 2, we did the CSS, and then for EX3 we put our floated pic in here, and then we'll be moving on from here. So hopefully you've seen enough of your little winner page here. So when you're done, you could either highlight your URL from Replit and put it in the comment, or just say complete in the comment, because you've probably given me your URL already, and I already have that, so you don't have to do that again. But just indicate in EX3 for Unit 2 that you have this finished so that I can check it out. I mean, I'll check it out either way, but you just have to put complete. You don't always have to copy that. So that's EX3 Floated Pic, still working in our EX1 directory.